Well, creepy local authority bureaucrats would like to see your entire existence boiled down to the duration of a quarter of an hour.
Motorists who are throwing their toys out of the pram and getting triggered by traffic filters because they believe that they should have total supremacy when it comes to urban planning. I can't believe you. Speed limits in residential areas. This is crazy totalitarian communism, really is. We should go there and thank them in the name of German car companies. Yeah, true. She disproved herself in her own video and then is just doing a bunch of slippery slope fallacy nonsense based off of the line. So like everyone who's online at the moment, whether it be YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, everybody seems to be talking about 15-minute cities. 15-minute cities have clearly become the subject du jour at the moment, because it's been subject to quite a lot of conspiracy theories about what they actually entail. Now, to be clear, what 15-minute cities are it's an urban planning method whereby you get access to all the amenities that you would need within a 15 minutes walk or bike ride away from yourself, so that you don't have to travel too far across the city using essentially using a car to be able to access any amenities that you would need to engage in your lifestyle, right? The way in which they do this is, first of all, have the planning available to ensure that these amenities exist in the first place, and second of all, disincentivize people not using those amenities by having traffic filters about where you can use your car specifically within the area inside those cities, for example. So one of the big things that's happening is the Oxford Council are trialling this at the moment, where they've divided up into, I think it's 5 or 6 different areas, these 15-minute zones, which have new circumference where you'd be able to actually go there, and then they're divided up essentially by traffic thoroughfares that go into the centre of Oxford, right? And those are where the traffic filters are, where you have where I think that you can only use them a certain amount of times per year. These specific roads, right, to be able to go through the city to get to one of the other areas outside of the 15-minute zone. And if you want to, instead of using the traffic filtered areas, you have to go around the ring road instead, right? So if you don't have the permit available, instead of going through the city, you go around the city. That's literally it. So basically it means that in these residential areas, you're minimizing traffic through flow, you're incentivizing people to use public transport, and you're changing the planning such that more amenities are available. Now, I have some criticisms of the way that they've rolled this out, but in general, this is pretty good. It's quite amusing in that the conspiracy theory that's formed around this is that you won't be able to leave your 15-minute area, and that the permit is about keeping you in the zone rather than just whether or not you use these traffic filters, which is crazy, right? These people have lost their minds and keep getting false information about this. We're going to be watching some of this content and responding to it. What's quite funny is that a lot of people are calling this communist because in their mind communism means authoritarian rule and clampdowns on personal freedoms, for example. I would actually call this very similar to, for example, similar to the urban planning the doctrine that the Soviet Union used in the mid part of the 20th century, the Sotsgorod Soviet urban planning that they had, where they were explicitly done of these mid-rise housing to ensure that people could live in areas where there was just traffic through roads going through without having to have the network of roads all everywhere, which meant that people could walk in areas with lots of greenery to be able to get to any of the amenities they needed without having to use any kind of transport and could just walk there. And they had far more green areas around them, which people keep telling me that they want. The middle class people keep telling me that they don't like living in cities in big CBD style new high density housing. They like there being green areas. They like having access to the green belt, which you're going to get less of if you build cities in a poor way. Well, the thing is, the reason why 15-minute cities are being designed in the way they have in the UK is because they are a kind of a patchwork solution to previous poor urban planning around a lot of car-centric design, right? When you have this car-centric design, instead of planning a city where the roads are planned in such a way that you can already have the amenities there, they're having to retroactively do a traffic filter to undo the issues of over-saturation of thoroughfares for cars. And that's why people are getting pissed off. People have been urban planning areas where you need a car to get around, and so they've invested in a car, and then now that things are changing, they don't like the change, and how they're trying to reroute urban planning to make it better for people who use their bike, better for people who walk around on foot, etc., etc. So that's the basic gist of this thing, and my god, it's kicked off a crazy conspiracy, as I said, about people thinking that, as Pedro would point out in chat, calling it a climate lockdown, saying that people are going to be trapped in their homes and that you're going to only ever live in a 15-minute vicinity of everything. I saw someone on TikTok claiming that they were meant that you could only see your grandmother in Scotland 100 times per year, and that you were going to get banned from ever leaving your small little urban conurbation. That was it, right? And these are all just, none of these things are true. They're all just complete nonsense. And one of the people who actually got first on the anti 15-minute city grift was Katie Hopkins. So we're going to actually watch her discussing this right now.
You will only have 15 minutes of freedom here in the UK. So let me tell you the plan. The plan is in Oxford, and this has just been passed by the council, to divide the city here into, a bit of a squiggly city, into 6 parts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you will only have the freedom to operate in the part that you live. So if this is you, the idea is that everybody will live within 15 minutes of the things they need. 15 minutes of a school, 15 minutes of a doctor's, 15 minutes of a supermarket.
And yeah, crazy, right? Having convenient access to amenities, that sounds like communism to me. If communism is just having access to amenities within convenient distances, you know what? Sign me up. I mean, I'm already signed up as literally a communist. But this is fine. We're absolutely fine. Will we have to show papers to get from sector 1 to sector 2? Papers, please. Sorry, I can't do the theme tune right now, but I do love the game Papers, Please.
And if you want to travel to the other zones in your city, or maybe soon your town, you will have to go out an approved route. You will have to journey around the outside of the city.
So yeah, she's literally already said in like in the first 50 seconds of her video, like 2 completely contradictory statements. Like she said, you're not going to leave your area, and then 3 sentences later, she's like, "Oh, actually, you can leave your area. You just have to go around the ring road." instead of going through the city to minimize traffic congestion in the center of town, you just have to go use the ring road. That's a climate lockdown. That is clearly. Katie, I virtually bankrupted myself by libeling Jack Monroe Hopkins. True. Is an approved route also known as a road? Yeah, but a very specific road, being one that goes around the city rather than through it. That's it. Literally, that's it.
In order to re-enter another section of the city. This plan is supposed to be saving the planet. And the idea is that you won't...
What's interesting as well is that it's not like my fundamental support for things like 15-minute cities is not actually based around climate stuff mostly. The more and more I've kind of delved into kind of urban planning law on this one is that, fundamentally, regardless of whether or not we had an issue with the climate, I also mentioned in chat previously that I'm not a massive fan of electric cars because I don't like cars regardless. It's that I don't like car-centric infrastructure. I think that it's bad. I think it's bad for community, bad for society, right? Having things be more walkable with less of a focus on building our urban communities to be able to accommodate cars is just good for a better standard of living and a better life that you can lead for everybody within that community and within that area, regardless of whether or not reducing cars is better for the environment or not. Good thing is that it is better for the environment to do that. It is much better for the environment to do that, but that's not my main concern. The more I've looked into urban planning and more, I just want walkable cities because walking is better, and living in cities that are walkable is better than cities that are fucking chock full of motor vehicles. Exhibit number 1, America. Yeah, like genuine dystopia to me looks like an American suburb. I'd much rather live in Magnitogorsk than an American suburb, quite frankly.
Simply be able to cross over into other sections of your city anymore. So if your mother, for example, lived over here, you wouldn't be able to just go across and see her.
Yeah, you'd go round and see her. Wow. Wild. Yeah, instead of going through, you go round. How totalitarian. How incredibly totalitarian.
This would all be done via e-gates, electronic gates, and number plate recognition. You in your area...
True, yeah, we've never had number plate recognition before for anything. No one's ever recognised your number plate for any reason at all in the history of motor vehicles.
Will only be allowed within that 15-minute zone that you've been allocated.
No, that's not... You literally disproved that 3 sentences ago. Like, literally 30 seconds ago, you already said that you can go to these other areas if you use the fucking ring road. Unless you don't use your car, then you can go straight. Well, yeah, exactly. That's the other thing. As Pedro correctly points out in chat, you can also go through the city if you really want to, as long as you fucking walk, or use a bike, or go on the bus, or go on the tram. Just literally not with your car. Right? These people are so fucking obsessed with being motorists that they can't even conceive of being able to get to another area of their city without getting in their car. Unreal. These people are just so fanatically car-brained that it's just the idea of doing anything other than jumping in their car has broken their brains entirely. There was actually a really interesting planning case recently about how new strategic developments shouldn't be permitted if the development can only be made accessible through improving local facilities and should instead provide entirely its own sustainable measures. I think that seems reasonable. I get the impression that she'd be the one to crap all over roundabouts as being a bad idea because you can't drive straight forward. Yeah, bloody totalitarian roundabouts.
The number plate recognition will know if you leave your zone. And you can apply for permission, a permit, to leave your zone and travel to another zone.
No, a permit to use the through road to the other zones. You won't need a permit to travel to the other zone if you use the ring road, as you already established earlier on in this video that I am now watching. I was going to say, I would say, do you think your audience are idiots? And then I realised, yes, they are idiots, and she does know that they're idiots. But I think, James, is that if they have a blue badge, I think they should be exempt. I think that'd be a reasonable compromise.
But you'll only be allowed to do this about 100 times a year. This is real. I just have to stop.
No, I catch you in a bit, Fancy Wiki.
And say that this has actually been passed by Oxford Council. This is happening.
These people are so fundamentally car-brained, right? They're so fundamentally car-brained that my support towards 15-minute cities is no longer pro-climate. It's no longer pro-walkable cities, right? I'm embracing the spite-based politics, right? I'm embracing my spite. The only reason why I'm in support of 15-minute cities now is because I want motorists to be miserable. That's the only thing I care about now, is making sure that motorists are miserable, because they deserve it. They're the most unfailingly irritating people, consistently mollycoddled by every single part of the country, every single part of government as well. They continually be given, carte blanche to have entire cities designed around their desire to be able to drive their car everywhere, right? The amount of coverage that gets given to people getting absolutely mad about traffic filters or one-way systems or low emission zones or the congestion charge. I'm like, yeah, tough. Just get the bus, right? Get the bus, get the tram, get the train, get the tube, walk, use your bike. I'm so sick of these people. And if 15-minute cities get these people mad, good, I support it. What are you? Are you gonna get triggered? Are you a bunch of fucking snowflake motorists? Didn't think so. Although, yes, they are very triggered by all this. If Katie Hopkins thinks it's a bad idea, then it's probably a good idea. The only exception to that would be the Don't Pay campaign for energy bills, because she did support that. It's just really crazy how she was calling out the energy companies for their price gouging during with regards to energy bills, right? But she couldn't get it into her mind that they weren't just doing this because they're evil people. She can't get into her mind that maybe it's because that the system is bad and they should never have been private. They should never have been fucking privatized in the first place. But of course, what she actually thinks is fucking the World Economic Forum, which I can only assume she thinks is behind the 15-minute cities as well. There must be some World Economic Forum conspiracy theory shit going on right here. Which again, the problem with the World Economic Forum is that they're fucking capitalists, right? The capitalism is bad, and it creates things like the World Economic Forum. It's not just an evil cabal of people doing evil things for the sake of being evil. It is just capitalism doing a capitalism. It's the profit motive that's under all of this. as far as the World Economic Forum, the existence of the World Economic Forum is concerned.
In the next 2 years, 2024, it begins. And if you use up all your 100 passes that someone designates whether you're allowed to have to go into the different zones, you'll be fined.
Yeah, if you go into the different zones, not via the ring road and by car, again, you have to do it by. You only get fined if you use your car and you go through the traffic filters. That's it.
Your number plate will be recognised. It will observe that you've gone somewhere you're not allowed in your own city.
Not gone somewhere that you're not allowed. Used roads that you're not allowed to do so by car, rather than using the ring road.
And it will fine you £100 or £80 or whatever the fine number is.
Good.
This is coming your way. This has already been approved in Oxford, in Canterbury. As another scheme, it's for 5 zones, but the same principle. This is not by chance. And what I want to take you through now is the controlling mechanism to any criticism of this. Then I want to take you through the parallels, the similarities, the patterns that you can see from this sort of coercive control. And finally, I want to take you to the dark side.
Yeah, true. The totalitarian traffic filters, the coercive control of ensuring that other people in your area don't have to have their entire urban area being completely beholden for your desire to continue to drive everywhere.
So 15-minute cities.
Because again, I should stress this point in that the only reason why people are in this position is because they've previously had all of their urban planning entirely built to suit their own particular needs as motorists. And the moment they get a slight level of pushback where literally any other mode of transport is being prioritized over their desire to drive their car, they flip their fucking lid, they lose their shit. Like, the tiniest bit of not being the people who are at the foremost thought as regards to planning decisions, and suddenly they absolutely flip, and suddenly it's totalitarian control. Yeah, think how pedestrians and cyclists feel having to continually share their urban areas with your massive fucking great hunks of metal.
How they manipulate the narrative, controlling any opposition, patterns that we've learnt already from COVID. And then I'll take you to the dark side. So when you're locked into these neighbourhoods and you're only allowed within 15 minutes of your home address, the way that they're going to and are already controlling the conversation, and think back to COVID, they're creating fact checkers. So anybody that's spoken of this already, whether it's...
Yeah, it's crazy. COVID clearly has broken people's brains, where we had a lockdown for a bit, which didn't go on long enough, and they kept trying. I mean, the government kept trying to remove the lockdowns as well. Boris Johnson was clearly very happy to continue removing the lockdowns. You know, no more effing lockdowns was something that Boris Johnson literally said. We have on record as him saying. So the idea that it was specifically done for totalitarian control, when at the start of the pandemic, they were trying to do fucking herd immunity shit, where they're trying to protect insurance companies over actual people in this country, for example, and protect the businesses rather than protecting, you know, the lives of people. The idea that they were somehow this kind of governments and were frothing at the mouth with the desire to control people when they already knew that lockdowns were going to be there were going to be certain sections of the public who were going to be incredibly unreceptive and straight opposition to these kind of things. The idea that they would want to try and push that further, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they do it? Why would they want to push when they are fundamentally they rely on continual public support to be able to continue to be elected in their constituents, within their wards, whatever it might be. The idea that they would compromise that by trying to become totalitarian monsters within a democracy, it doesn't literally make any sense. It's why it's so weird, conspiracy brain. Especially now that we literally have WhatsApp messages. Obviously, this was before this, but we have WhatsApp messages from Hancock now showing the caseloads were massively increasing during Eat Out to Help Out. And they said, well, we can't do it because people like it too much and people don't want to go back into lockdown. We had massive skyrocketing numbers because of a garbage piece of party policy that was anti-lockdown. And we all see where that went with the increase in numbers of cases. How much of Katie Hopkins is actually an exaggerated character? I think it actually makes it worse. It's like propaganda for profit grind set. I don't want to speculate, and at this point, I don't think it even matters whether it's a grift or not. These conspiracy theory nutcases are so widespread now and it's so difficult to tell who's grifting and who's not. It's incredibly it's damaging to democracy whether they're grifting or whether they're not grifting. There's probably plenty of grifters, and Katie Hopkins clearly has an eye for wanting to deliberately be controversial for the sake of being controversial to maintain her influencer status. I mean, look at her comments about the refugee crisis, for example. I mean, she was on The Fucking Apprentice. It's clear she only really cares about being a celebrity rather than any kind of actual utility. So it's very possible that she is grifting, but at this point, it makes no difference because the conspiracy theory stuff that's going on is so damaging to democracy in general as well. Ever notice how conspiracy nutters have a bajillion books behind them? I mean, some people just own lots of books. I mean, streamers have lots of books behind them, I guess, but depends what the books are. Oh, one of them is her own book. Literally, she's got her own book right here. It's the only one that I can read. Is that the Judi Dench's autobiography? More copies of her own book over here.
News in Australia with lovely Rowan, or GB News, or anyone trying to talk about this zoning restriction in cities where you're going to be effectively told you can only go this far.
Literally, Martin Jackson music. Literally, I am one of the few writers who's written more books than they've read. I'm smart because books. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And you must stay this far. Any kind of opposition to that, any voices like this one saying, can you not see the worry here, the control on this? Now we have the fact checkers. So you have the fact checkers that will be promoted on Google.
The thing is, and the conspiracy nuts will do this too. They will deliberately try and prime their audience to ignore the opinions of people trying to present them with facts. So you'll say, well, people will try and fact check this because I don't want my feelings to possibly be counteracted by people who have actual data. And she's saying, well, actually, fact checkers are all liars who've been paid off by Soros and the World Economic Forum. And you just go like, this is textbook conspiracy theory stuff. Do not trust anyone who disagrees. You cannot trust him. You must stay within the cult. It's very much cult mentality.
On any search engine, fact checkers on Twitter, AFP, fact checking, saying, no, this isn't a climate lockdown. This is just some traffic control. No, people will still be able to go wherever they want.
Yes, you admitted it in this video. You already said people can go where they want to go, as long as it's via the ring road. You said that 40 seconds into the fucking video. You know that that's true, and you've already admitted it as such. Why are you what are you doing? If you're going to make a piece of lying propaganda, don't deliberately disprove yourself in the first minute of your own video.
Well, yes, you will, but you'll be fine. No, there won't be physical barricades. Well, no, there won't. There'll be e-gates and there'll be nameplate recognition.
I mean, they have put physical barriers in to be able to maintain, I think, pedestrianised areas so that cars can't get through, but cyclists can get through. Corporations controlling information, r/socialism is when capitalism. True. Because again, they don't understand anything that left wingers believe. And I said this on stream yesterday, and I'll say it again. There's the one frustrating thing is how people on the right just don't seem to understand anything that the left believe from base principles. Nobody. They all just seem to not understand why we believe the things that we believe, and I try very much in earnest to at least try and understand how right-wingers have come to the conclusions that they've come to. I spend a lot of time watching right-wing content specifically so I can try and understand why they think the way that they do and why they believe in the things that they believe. And they just don't ever do the fucking opposite, apart from a select few individuals. These are the same people who call veganism a cult, that cognitive dissonance is maddening, or they'll call people who oppose, who want to take action against climate change, they call us the climate cult a lot of the time, despite the fact that we have actual science and data, and that's where we base our ideas off of, rather than, conspiracy theory YouTube videos made by grifters.
And probably facial recognition to follow, which is far more scary than an actual bollard that I could go blooming crashing my way through at my own cost. All of these fact checkers are, no, but what they're saying is fine, is not fine at all. The next thing, which we saw so many times and I've seen all my life, is that you accuse those who are speaking out, like myself, of causing harm. You say that in Oxford, the councillors have had to stay at home for the day because of all of the abuse they've been taking online. These extremists, these conspiracy theorists are threatening physical violence. You make it so that...
I've not seen anyone threaten physical violence yet. That's one thing I won't say. But if councillors are fearing for their safety because people like you. You mean you've got 114,000 views, so you've made a pretty penny in AdSense revenue off of this video that you've got here, Katie. It's clearly very lucrative for you to be able to continue to push this stuff and get people driven into the cult mentality. Which, when you're saying things such as you cannot believe people who are trying to tell facts at you to try and disprove stuff, that's textbook stuff that you would do to try and keep people within a cult, to try and make sure they continue consuming your content for continual revenue. There is at least some level of material interest in you continuing this as a conspiracy theory. And if this and wanting to push people further down that rabbit hole is going to lead people to engage in things that would negatively affect them and get them angry and riled up enough so much so that they could theoretically threaten people like counsellors. I'm not saying that they have or that they definitely will, but it's something that could happen. But that's my problem there, is that you're lying, Katie. Or not even lying, because you've said the truth already in this video, and then you're just lying about the things that you've just said, which makes it even more ridiculous. Because you've already disproved yourself in the video that I'm just watching. And then you're using this to try and get people scared when there is no justification for it. And people will do awful things when they're scared. Fear is a really great motivator, especially for conservatives. Like, conservatives they're really driven by things like fear and disgust. So putting fear into people by blowing something like this out of proportion, that is dangerous. I'm not saying you've caused any harm yet, but there's definitely danger about theoretical harm that could come later on. I find it funny how a video is over 15 minutes. If you're in a 15-minute city, you can prove her wrong before she's finished just by walking whilst listening. Well, yeah, true. She ought to be more concerned about the information in this book rather than her spreading epistemic ignorance. Data cartels. Ooh, that's interesting. This data is power. Information hoarding businesses reign supreme, using intimidation, aggression, and force to maintain influence and control. Sarah Lambden brings us into the unregulated world of these data cartels, demonstrating how the entities mining, commodifying, and selling our data and informational resources perpetuate social inequalities and threaten the democratic sharing of knowledge. True. So true. And then I was like, I wonder where all of this centralized control came from. Yes, welcome to capitalism. This is how capitalism works. This is what happens when corporations get incredibly powerful, because they be able to get monopolize over commodified sections of the marketplace. Really strange, that, isn't it? Thing is, preventing people from using residential streets as cut-throughs is standard planning practice, and the council tends to install more and bigger roads. Quite.
That anyone speaking out against this is the enemy and may cause harm, and this maybe should be policed. And shouldn't we be policing the speech of those who speak out against 15-minute cities, or being told you're not allowed to drive where you want to anymore?
That's one thing that I will just say is nonsense. No one said that these people should be policed. No one said they shouldn't be right to speak out. What we've mostly been calling them is stupid, because they are. They're either stupid people who are getting they're vulnerable people who are getting taken in by this stuff, or they're just dickhead motorists who are throwing their toys out of the pram and getting triggered by traffic filters because they believe that they should have total supremacy when it comes to urban planning.
And the last thing is just the labelling of people as conspiracy theorists means that you automatically dismiss them. So for me, I'm just a regular mom, pay my taxes. I can see that telling people where they can and can't drive is not okay.
Yes, it is. We've always told people where they can and can't drive. Have you ever heard of like a one-way street, a one-way system? Pedestrianisation, private land. Literally, roads are full of places being told where you can or can't drive. You are like. Why are you not getting mad? As someone said, I like roundabouts. You can only drive around the roundabout one way. That driving around the roundabout one way is totalitarian nonsense. Everything needs to be l'Arc de Triomphe as far as road control is concerned. Right? You have to stay in the left-hand lane unless you're overtaking on the motorway. Oh, I can't believe these totalitarians want me to stay in the left-hand lane. Why can't I mount the pavement killing people? True, Kath, exactly. Why can't I demand to drive my car in Venice? Have you heard of roadworks? Have you heard of no entry signs?
Becomes a conspiracy theorist. Just like it was racist was used to silence people who just had an opinion about something. This is another way of labelling people. Now I want to talk about the patterns. So if you are open-minded for one moment Let's see if you can see some of the patterns from COVID lockdowns repeating themselves with this traffic calming system that requires you to stay within 15 minutes of your home address and not cross over into your neighbour's turf.
No, it doesn't do that. It doesn't do that. You can go to the other zones via the ring road. I'm going to keep saying it. You're going to get tired of me continually saying it, but that's just the case. That is how that works. You've said so as much in this video already. And
so one pattern is to create a morally superior rationale, a morally superior reason. So the reason that's given for this
the only time you get restricted about where you can travel is if you're traveling by car. If you want a bike to the other areas, you can do. It's fine. Just go on your bike. Get on the bus. Your opinions are bad is now a slur. No, it's not just a slur, infotoxin. It is literally like the end of free speech. If someone says someone's either saying things that are factually inaccurate or having a shitty opinion, right? That's the end of free speech as we know it. Being told that you're bad, being disagreed with, right? Again, it's the same, because the kind of people who buy into these conspiracy theories as well, you can see the kind of people that they are. I said this yesterday. They're the 5% angry at the 1%, people who are fully capitalism pilled, but are seeing their chance at being part of the kind of upper echelons being eroded by this concentration of power. So they've not really understood that it's a fault of capitalism yet. And they feel like that there must be, because they have a full-throated belief in capitalism. The only possible explanation as to why they've not succeeded or they've not become powerful or become part of the upper echelons is specifically because there must be some kind of rogue fifth columnist agent undermining it from the inside, rather than just any kind of latent fault with the system itself. Is she upset that we won't have be able to have sex in a field anymore? It's political correctness gone mad, Kieran, I tell you. But these are the kind of people it is, and that's why they are so entitled. Like no one's ever more entitled than the kind of, upper middle class people. They are the most entitled group of society, because they will literally, anything that is done to benefit anyone they feel like is lower than them, they will throw their toys out of the pram, then try and tell everybody that they're this kind of oppressed group, when they really are just someone who's been pandered to forever, now getting a little bit of policy that isn't specifically entirely tailored to their interests. I mean, just look at what happens when you try and build housing near people who have mortgages, for example. Possible relevant adjacent topic for the future. Darren Mugabe had a brilliant talk on the working class for Scotland. I remember him saying that rich English are moving to Scotland in such droves. It's driving out the working class Scottish to England. It's like a second wave of subtle clearances. Yeah, quite. I can see that, James. That makes sense. But yeah, she's just continually disproving her own statements as this video goes on.
It's never the actual reason, but the reason. So with COVID, it was stay home so you don't kill old people. A morally superior reason, right? Or
and we saw what happened when we released the lockdown, when we did Each Out to Help Out. We saw the negative externalities, right? You're trying to say that all these hundreds of thousands of people didn't die during the pandemic, Katie?
With Ukraine and Russia, morally superior reason. Oh, we're fighting for democracy. With this, it's, this is about the climate. And if you bring out of university people who truly believe, young people who truly believe...
But it's not even about the climate. Again, it doesn't even necessarily have to be about the climate. That is a good byproduct of all of this. It is going to help the climate by reducing motorists. But it's also about just making living areas better and nicer for people who like to walk and or bike and or get public transport to different places. This is really what I said right, this is genuinely what I care about. I want to have a walkable neighborhood. I want cars out of my neighborhood. I don't like them. They're dangerous. They're polluting not in a climate sense, but in a air cleanliness sense for the area that I want to live in, right? Children can't play in the streets if the streets are full of fucking cars. I love that I live in a cul-de-sac on a road that goes off a B road, because the kids in the road outside my house, they fucking play in the street. It's really heartwarming that the kids are out there playing in the street, however many times a week, because we live in such a low area of car travel that they can do that, and it's not dangerous for them. Everybody else, though, that would never happen for their kids. It would never happen for their kids. There would no space for them to do so. Cars are probably the most selfish thing that we can own as normal people. Yeah, 100% true. And again, they think that obviously there is a climate aspect to this. True, we need to cut down car usage to try and deal with climate change. That's obviously non-negotiable, 100%. as far as, the main strategy that we should be having to combat climate change is reducing car usage. But that is, as far as I'm concerned, as far as urban planning is concerned, is a convenient byproduct of making cities better for pedestrians, better for cyclists. It's good for these people too, because cars are expensive as hell. But the problem is, JDM, but these people are rich, right? These people are upper middle class. These people can afford cars. They don't mind paying for cars. That's not a problem for them. It's being able to use their money in a way which has negative effects for other people, and not having the freedom to do that. That's where they're losing their shit. It's like, I've got all this money, I should be able to do whatever I want with it, and screw the externalities, screw all the people it's going to negatively affect, and all of the urban planning, all of the stuff, that should all be entirely beholden to me and my needs, and no one else should ever be considered in this. You're 100%, James. Yeah, we should be prioritising public transport. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Like the people who glued themselves to the pictures in the gallery, they truly believe they only have 5 years to live. That they believe that. This is the morally superior.
No, it's not
reason.
that we have 5 years to live. It's that the time at which any amount of continual carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere gets us past the point at which the parts per million are so high that the damage that gets done is irreversible and makes it difficult, right? People in the global north, people in the UK, they're not going to be the ones adversely affected by climate change, at least not for the when we start seeing the first effects of irreversible changes due to increase in the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, right? The people in the global north are not going to be the first affected until, of course, the countries in the global south are affected, and all those people start migrating to the global north. And suddenly people like Katie Hopkins over here are going to get mad at all of the climate immigrants, right? If you are genuinely desperate to ensure that there's no more immigration to this country, Katie, which I know that you are, because you were absolutely you literally spouted a bunch of mid-30s German rhetoric about refugees and wanting a solution for this, a solution, maybe some kind of solution that might be kind of final about refugees coming to the UK. I know if you don't want these immigrants to come here, then make sure that the emissions that are done to benefit the consumption of the global north aren't then having these ramifications in the global south that's going to cause all these climate immigrants. I will tell you now, Casey, you don't want this. You do not want this. I know that you don't. Wait, do the right suddenly care about climate change? I mean, fundamentally, because a lot of them don't like immigration for all a bunch of astroturfed reasons, that it's not something that they have this kind of genuine attachment to, because it's something that you don't really see as much direct contact with. It's more of a vibe that you get about there being too many non-white faces, or theoretically there might be some kind of driving down of wages that doesn't actually happen, for example. That might be one reason why they have. But the thing is, when you start saying, well, we need to restrict what people are doing, we need to change the way we build our cities so that they're less car-centric, so you have few opportunities to use your car, for example, that has direct impact on them. So this is what gets them really riled up about this kind of stuff, because climate change is going to involve some kind of collective change in the way we live our lives, and that they can see those effects far more often. So I think that's why they are getting more angry about net zero stuff than they do about immigration, for example.
We need to do this. We need to lock people down into 15-minute zones because we need to save the planet. Morally superior reason, right?
But they're not being locked down 15-minute areas, and no one's saying this. So, I mean, if you can film it, if someone in the comments when I upload this, when some random whack job in the comments when I upload this segment onto YouTube wants to disprove me on that one, feel free, go for it. I don't mind. But I have not seen myself anybody say we need to lock people down into 15-minute zones to save the planet. No one said that, as far as I can see. And if nobody proves that wrong in the comments, then I will continue to believe that, because no one's shown me any of this. And if she had seen people say this, she'd quote that, wouldn't she? She would bring up examples or use that to demonstrate her point. But of course, she doesn't want to do that. A, because those things don't exist, and B, she wants to ensure that she keeps people scared by telling them what they want. And we all know what people say when they mean they.
2, you sell it in softly. So as with COVID, you sell it in slowly, one thing at a time. So this has been going on in Oxford since 2015, but no one really noticed because silly councillors. And then 2019, another consultation. And 2022, it's back again. And despite 90% of people saying no, it's going ahead anyway. And then you put in 20 miles an hour zones. If you don't see
20 miles an hour, speed limits. Imagine having totalitarian control of the speed that you're actually allowed to drive your car. Speed limits, I can't believe speed limits in residential areas. This is crazy totalitarian communism, really is.
In your area, I'm thinking Wales will be next. Honestly, I will put money. What are we now? 8th December, 9th. Wales will be one of the next test cities. Maybe Cardiff, I don't know. But 20-mile-an-hour zones. You see that coming? That is schooling you to prepare for 15-minute cities.
Yes, it's true. Speed limits were just the test. If you were willing to obey a speed limit, you're going to willingly obey traffic filters and using the ring road. It's a real slippery slope. Next, you might be waiting at traffic lights. Then the communists will really have got you.
Get to go outside your 15-minute zone. So you sell it in softly. Number 3, you focus on the minutiae. And when the powerful were testing out the levers of control on us, as I believe in lockdown, focusing on the minutiae worked brilliantly. How many people can I have in my home? Now let's change that rule. Now you're allowed 6, now you're allowed 8. Now you're allowed out twice a day, but for 1 hour, but not for 45 minutes, but you can't sit on a bench. Now you can do this, but not that, but you must do this, and you must be wearing a red hat. Blind people with the minutiae because they focus on it. So in this example, 15 minutes. But you will be able to go to that segment, but only if you use the ring road, and then only up to 100 times a year.
No. 100 times a year is the through roads. The ring roads you can use all the time. The permits are specifically for the through roads, the actual traffic filters. So you've just lied there. So previously you counteracted yourself. Well, now you started off being truthful by counteracting the statement you already made in this video, Casey, by saying you can go to these other areas, but only if you use the ring road, right? I'm focusing on the minutiae because the minutiae is literally the important bit here, because you've disproved, because you're trying to tell us that people are being locked down when that's not the case, right? You can still use the ring road at any time of year, all year, regardless, okay? You can always use the ring road. But if you want to use the through roads, that's where the traffic filter is, and that's only 100 times per year. And only if you drive by car, right? If you use any other mode of transport, not a problem. It's just when you're using your car. Low-speed urban planning is honestly amazing. Some of the places in the EU countries where they have that are awesome. True. Speed limits one day, concentration camps the next. It's where it starts. Do your research.
And the amount of the fine will be about £85, but that amount will be blah, blah, blah. And you'll be given a pass if you're this, but not.
Also, I'd like to say, just going to clarify this, if people are watching who think that I hate poor people because I'm in favour of fines. Fines should always be stratified based on wealth, right? Maybe there probably should be fines for breaking the traffic filters.
Get up, go home. I'm opposed to what you're doing.
Zakap with the Raider 45. Zeod with the resub, Rooster on right, and JBO069 with the follows. Welcome to No Justice Stream, everybody. I hope we're all doing well.
A communist.
Did the USSR have speed limits? I bet they did. I bet they had speed limits. You trigger that I'm literally a communist again, with following.
I'm literally a communist.
Luckily, there's a bunch of people who have just followed from the raid who triggered it, so. But yeah, so this is nonsensical. Again, she's trying
neoliberalism.
And that's why she says you can't trust people who focus on the minutiae, because the minutiae are the bits that literally disprove me here. Have you ever heard of the tyranny of driver's licenses? Well, unironically, Infotoxin, remember the the Libertarian Party National Convention in the US?
Literally a communist.
Real86 with a follow. Welcome to No Justice Stream. When we were the Libertarian Party National Convention in 2016, where Gary Johnson was the only person out of all of the 5 candidates on stage who said that there should be driving licenses, right? Someone said, like, what was the crazy statement it was? It's like, oh, driving licenses, next I need a license to use my own toilet. That's what libertarians genuinely believe. They think that driver's license is a tyranny. If a fine is only monetary, that only applies to the poor. I mean, that's true. That is obviously true, Johnny Marker. That's why they should be stratified. That's why fines should be stratified based upon based upon people's income, right? There's a story. One of the biggest fines ever given in the world was $1 million speeding fine in Switzerland, I think it was. A Swedish man got fined $1 million because he speeded in his Bugatti, I think it was, on a Swiss road, and because he was so rich, it was stratified on income, which was really good. Yeah, Finland has that as well. Yeah.
That. Get people to focus on the minutiae, because what you're then doing is taking them away from the, I'm sorry, why would you be telling me where I'm allowed to drive in my own city?
Yeah, like exactly. Yeah, why would you be telling me to only drive at 30 miles an hour? Why would you be telling me to stop at traffic lights? Yeah, this is insane authoritarian control over the ability to be able to, drive only certain areas. I'm like, yeah, exactly. You can't drive your car some places. Go with the fucking program. And you're right, JDM. Exactly, 100% JDM. Absolutely right. It's not your city, it's everyone's city. Other people live there too. Other people have different interests. And a lot of people's other interests involve not having to share their own urban spaces with your massive fucking gas guzzler. Yeah, the tyranny of existing with other people. Again, the biggest thing that triggers these people is especially these libertarian types, is just the idea of a social contract existing. They are absolutely, they lose their shit at the idea of ever being ever having to adhere to any kind of social contract. And motorists, you're absolutely right. They don't think like that at all. They're the absolute worst. Because they've been pandered to by every urban planning decision ever since the invention of the fucking motor car. They will continue throwing their weight around and then throwing their toys out of the pram the moment they're not continually pandered to. We'll see more of this, because these kind of changes to urban planning are happening more and more, and they will happen more and more as millennials and Gen Z get more politically active, because we're all in favour of this, mostly because a lot of us can't fucking afford cars anyway.
It works perfectly with ordinary people, because ordinary people love to know the rule, because they like to stay within the rule, because they don't want to be in trouble. You silence the opposition, so people like me, conspiracy theorists, penalise them, demonetise them, call them nutters, make them anti.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to be called a nutter, maybe don't act like a fucking nutter, Katie.
Trying to keep people alive. Imagine them saying it's about climate lockdown when all it is just a little bit of e-gates and, nameplate, number plate recognition. Oh, those crazy people. Make them nutters.
We have number plate recognition for speed cameras, Katie.
And promote people who love this stuff. Show people cycling. Cyclists saying how lovely it is to be able to cycle about freely. Focus on promoting. And then, as we
exactly. Bloody cyclists expecting to have space for themselves have urban planning that's centered around their ability to be able to go from places in their city without having to deal with the additional pollution and lack of air quality that they would be able to get in their own area. Zakap with the follow. Thank you for the follow and the raid. Welcome to No Justice stream. I hope we're all doing well. By the way, raiders, my name is No Justice MTG. Or just No Justice is what I usually go by. I cover UK politics from a leftist perspective. Most days I took a bit of a break recently, but I'm back streaming a lot more regularly now. If you're enjoying the content, feel free to drop a follow. Please click on my face on the bottom left or refresh the stream so that you count in the view count. That would be amazing. Thank you very much.
Reward people who promote this stuff. So maybe if you promote it, you'll have special privileges, like the people in government who told us we had to be locked down, but then were partying themselves, or like the newsreaders who told us we had to stay indoors, but were caught in the pub or pissed off to Antigua. Silence opposition. Promote those who will talk proudly about this.
You're not being silenced. You're just being told that you're stupid and a liar in the own video where you've immediately discounted yourself. Oh yeah, that's true. And as Bilderberg points out, we do have the best emotes in the game.
Give those who promote it special privileges. Okay, to the dark side. So what I believe and what I talk about are two different things, in the sense that I don't go to the dark side very often because it's too much. And what I'm trying to do is bring an audience with me. People who hate me, fine. People who like me, fine. People who agree with me sometimes and don't. And what I avoid doing is talking about what I think, believe, know, have seen, have experienced a lot, because it's too dark. And it's so horrid that almost you lose everyone, because almost... if it's true, it's so awful. You You can't imagine it. So I don't go here often.
Oh,
but
good thing it isn't true then. Good thing it isn't true about people being stuck in their areas. It's just a traffic filter. It turns out none of it was true. It's just been a traffic filter the entire time.
just sort of glimpse to the dark side, which is, in my personal opinion, that COVID lockdowns.
So true, Scribby. Yeah, all of these same people that absolutely piss blood as soon as their ability to be able to, drive their car wherever they want gets impeded. They absolutely piss blood. But when it comes to, for example, as you say, like tagging immigrants or revoking citizenship of groomed children, suddenly they would actually be like, oh no, authoritarianism is good now. Actually, that's absolutely fine. Authoritarianism for me, for thee, libertarianism for me. That's exactly what the kind of thing they would say. Law should bind but not protect, etc., etc. Well, yeah, exactly, JDM.
And COVID itself, actually, in terms of how it was manifest in the media. And I'm not saying there wasn't a terrible situation, and I'm not saying lots of people didn't get very, very sick and die. They did. But the way it was manifest, I believe, was all about testing the levers of control. And
I mean, the word "I believe" is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, considering how reticent the government was to even institute lockdowns in the first place, and then even more reticent to then continue those moving forward.
The powerful across the planet got to see which levers worked best. So it was like testing the levers, like if you imagine driving a tractor that has lots of levers, or a digger. That's how it went. And you tested this lever and it did that. Okay. You tested this lever and it did that. And
it almost sounds like she's talking to children, doesn't it? It's very kind of Nigerian scammer type thing where, it has to be so stupid and so ridiculous and so dumbed down to weed out the people who would be too smart to get taken in, right? It has to explicitly be tailored to the kind of people already who would be the people who would want to get involved in it. It sounds a lot. It sounds like talking to children in the same way that Dan Wootton sounds like talking to like pensioners, in the way that he talks down like someone patronising pensioners.
Now we can use those levers to control people according to how governments, or rather global organisations, wish. So internalising the problems into people's homes, that worked brilliantly. Clapping on doorsteps, genius. Taking Ukrainian refugees into your own homes, personalise it to people on their doorstep, that works great. And there'll be something about this driving restriction, climate lockdown, that will be personalised into people's homes. Maybe it will be a sort of measure of how many times you've kept within your distancing, smart meters for your own travelling, how many times.
But again, this is always important to point out, this is just ridiculous, slippery slope style conspiracy nonsense. There's no one's ever said anything or made any intimation to this. And again, I just want to reiterate, guys, this is someone who's someone getting angry about traffic filters and thinking that means locking people inside their homes for a reason, as to say that's a climate lockdown. There's no reason for saying. There's no similar justification for there would be for a climate lockdown than there would be for, a viral lockdown. It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. You can just walk, use a bike, use public transport. It's just about you using your car. Fucking hell. This is the same lady that went on a tirade about kids named after geographical locations whilst naming her daughter India. Not the smartest tool herself. Well, yeah, true. Can Katie even fathom how fucking expensive it would be to track individual cars? But no. Thing is, JDM, is that this government is so bent on testing the levers of control that it doesn't matter how much money they would spend, right? If they're going to give billions to Ukraine, then surely they would happily spend billions policing every single person within their own 15-minute zones. Oh, no, they don't care about how much money it costs as long as they can get the grasp of the control of this. What they really want is the control. That's clearly what it's all about. It costs literal thousands per car. Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's money that's justified as far as the nanny state is concerned. You really miss the old days of conspiracy theories about Paul McCartney being dead, Nelson Mandela being a Time Lord, Elvis still being alive. Yeah, mostly just a bunch of nonsense rather than these kind of really dangerous conspiracies. Yeah, exactly. We have, as you're right, Scribby. Like we literally have the stats showing how reducing speed affects mortality rate. If you hit me at 30 miles an hour, there's an 80% chance. Sorry, if you 40 miles an hour, 80% chance I'll die. If you hit me at 30 miles an hour, there's an 80% chance I'll live. Well, hang a minute. Doesn't that mean the girl should just walk away at 10 miles an hour?
times have you used your 15-minute, limits this week? They will bring it into your homes like the way they do with the smart meters. Compliance, pushing this idea that if you're compliant.
Okay, so why were the smart meters being fitted by British Gas and Centrica and all the other gas companies? Was it to control you because they are just evil people who want to make sure they have total control of everybody because of some desire to be evil? Or was it because of the profit motive? Was it because of the structure of capitalism that means these people are entirely beholden to the whims of their shareholders? Is that not the real reason why the smart meters were being fitted? Because they wanted to keep money, make money off of poor people. That's the reason why they did it. Like, the control is just a fucking byproduct of the fact that they are specifically there deliberately to make as much money off of people as possible. That's the only reason why they did it. It's just money. What's the mortality rate when Katie Hopkins does 70 miles an hour over the central reservation in Minecraft? I wonder. If it was up to me, I'd just ban cars inside cities and make everyone use public transport. I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I would love to go that far just to try and piss off motorists. Because I've already said, fully spite-pilled while I make motorists as mad as possible. But I think even that would be a little bit controversial, to say the least.
You follow the rules, you do what you're told, your life becomes easier. But if you disobey, if you break the rules, we're going to crush you.
Aren't smart meter? Yes, I mean, obviously, I think she did say smart meters. I think I said smart meters as well, but I'm pretty sure that she's referring to the prepayment meters that were installed and is thinking in the wrong way, like I am, about smart meters. And because most smart meters still work on prepayment anyway, right? Because my smart meter is a prepayment meter.
In the same way that maybe a Tommy or a me needed to be crushed, or a Belfield crush you to the point of taking everything you have and making it so that your life becomes unlivable.
True. I cannot live without being able to drive down the main road into the centre of Oxford 101 times per year. I literally cannot live without it. I think in some better world we actually have really good public transport. Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Who dissipate to teach others a lesson that compliance is the only way that you're going to get through this. Make people enjoy small worlds. Reward small behaviour, small thinking. 15 minutes. Stay within your zones. Yeah, just wear your pajamas.
Yes, true. You're not truly free unless you have to drive 3 miles to get to the shopping centre, right? Unless you're driving 45 minutes, it's not true freedom to be able to get to your local amenities, right? True freedom is living in America, where everyone has to drive for half an hour to get to the mall, where everyone parks up in fucking these gigantic, flat, open-plan car parks to go and hang out in the mall, because there's nowhere else to hang out, because every single urban space has been taken up by sprawling suburbia. Milton Keynes, anyone? Well, exactly, true. Like, yeah, sure. Yeah, so the worst possible thing would be me having the convenience of being able to find a bank in my area, right? Be able to find a bank, or be able to go to find a park within 15 minutes, or go to the doctor's surgery within 15 minutes. That's the real tyranny, is having access to local and convenient amenities. They're going to make you walk and then run you over with public buses. Wake up, sheeple.
Day. Don't even bother going out. The government will give you everything you need if you just stay inside, stay on your screens, stay locked down, get smart. Don't try and go out. And people
And what's interesting as well, right? Look at this. I found this polling on Twitter here. Forget the conspiracy theories. 15-minute neighbourhoods are popular in Britain. Here's what amenities Britons want within a 15-minute walk from their home. 90%, like the only thing that you get down to like negative approval for 15 minutes access are restaurants and shopping centres. Everything else, like barbers, secondary school, banks, supermarket, parcel drop-off, nursery, off licenses, primary schools, parks, GPs, pharmacies, postbox, bus stops, they all want them within 15 minutes, right? They want this stuff because it's good and convenient. But really, actually, they've all been brainwashed by the World Economic Forum to think too small, to think that convenience is actually bad. The only convenience that Katie Hopkins, for some reason, cares about is driving down central roads into central Oxford during peak times more than 100 times in a year. Tyranny is when I have to walk to the grocery store like a peasant instead of driving there like a king. True. And yeah, people don't want a shopping centre. That's fine. Like, you shouldn't need a shopping centre. You should, like, people should have, I mean, maybe a Tesco, right? Big Tesco's within 15 minutes walk. That seems reasonable. Other than that, like, you know, shopping centres can stay in the centre of town. Like, if you want to go to, like, an actual shopping centre, like, reasonable to take a bus. Everything else makes loads of sense. Anyone else have the experience of leaving their hometown and then returning and finding it's been totally stripped of any culture or colour whatsoever? UK northern towns have been hit hard and they look exactly the same. I used to date a girl who lived in Whitehaven.
They don't think.
That's for later. I used to date a girl who lived in Whitehaven. And going to Whitehaven, it was a fucking ghost town. All the shops had shut down. It was really strange. All that was open left was pubs and betting shops. True Marxism was when you have a shop at the end of the street. True.
People who made effort, who made endeavour, who adventured, who want to take risks, people who will throw themselves off a mountain or out of a plane or will risk their home to make a business work, employ people even though it's a pain in the ass, crush them down. Make it such
what does starting a business have to do with any of this? None of the I'm done with this stuff because it really is rotting my brain watching everything that she's saying here. But again, she disproved herself in her own video and then is just doing a bunch of slippery soap fallacy nonsense based off of the lie that she's told. So we're going to stop that there. But Mark Dolan did a shorter and hopefully less mind-altering, mind-numbing piece of content about this. So we're going to watch this, and then we're going to watch a discussion, and then we're going to watch a commentary video about the protest that went on as well.
What can you do in 15 minutes? Empty the washing machine and hang up your fresh laundry? Read a couple of chapters of your favourite book? Watch half an episode of How I Met Your Mother? Well, creepy local authority bureaucrats would like to see your entire existence boiled down to the duration of a quarter of an hour, with the arrival of so-called 15-minute cities. This dystopian plan will see roads in some of Britain's most iconic towns and cities being blocked off, with cars being restricted to certain areas, all overseen by number plate recognition cameras in...
Based! Super fucking based. Piss off the motorists, let's fucking go! Let's do it.
Installed everywhere, with a surveillance culture that would make Pyongyang envious. In some...
Yes, true, it's true. Pyongyang are really known for their traffic filters.
places your car would have an allowance to drive on certain streets for a fixed number of days in the year. Some roads out of bounds to all. Many consider this idea laudable. 15-minute cities make everything walkable. You can go...
Yeah, literally, Kath, this is the same guy from Balls of Steel. It's amusing as well as that he was massively in favour of remaining in the European Union. He was tweeting about it all the time. He went to rallies wearing an I'm in badge all over himself. He was super in favour of remaining in the European Union. And then he joins GB News. And suddenly, now that he's being paid by the pro-Brexit Legatum Foundation, suddenly he's super pro-Brexit. What a weird coincidence, Mark. What a strange coincidence. I love how they fearmonger about surveillance in order to deflect from the crazy surveillance we already have. But that's surveillance against brown people and travellers, the good kind of surveillance. Whereas the bad surveillance is when upper middle class people can only use their car to drive on certain roads. That's the real totalitarian surveillance.
By foot to grab a coffee, do your grocery shopping, have a pint. And if you don't fancy walking,
his hair can be fixed in 15 minutes. I mean, I can appreciate the 2007 era landfill indie haircut that he's got going on.
Everything you need is just a 5-minute bicycle ride away. Lovely. Fans of this scheme?
Yes, it is lovely, actually. I like convenience.
Say it will deal with traffic and congestion and make life easier, more convenient and sustainable for locals. Except that, as the MP Nick Fletcher, who's raised a question about this in Parliament, points out, these low-traffic neighbourhoods are having an impact on small businesses, given the lack of passing trade they now receive. Take a listen.
True. I remember the last time I did a drive-by shop. I shopped with... or go into a drive-through convenience store. Again, I mean, maybe he's going to show me some evidence of reduced footfall for some Because, I mean, people are still going to be in the centre of town, just not by car. People are still going to get there by walking, cycling, using the bus. They'll still be actually in town. But where's the reduced footfall? And they haven't even taken effect yet, so where's the data coming from? Aren't these the type of people who say, if you've got nothing to hide, then you don't need to worry about surveillance? Well, yes and no. They only say that about brown people. They only say that about immigrants. They only say that about ne'er-do-wells and travellers. Maybe the problem is that their shop is more than 15 minutes away. Well, yeah, exactly. Also, by the way, this Nick Fletcher MP, this is the same MP that I mocked on stream because he said the reason why crime was going up was because the woman was playing Doctor Who. Genuinely said that. You know, men are losing all their role models because Jodie Whittaker is Doctor Who, and that's why they're going out and committing crime. It's definitely not all of the austerity and all of the poverty and all of the relative poverty and the growing gap between the rich and the poor and the cost of living crisis. There's none of that. It's all Jodie Whittaker's fault. Dolan started as a stand-up comedian in 2000 and reached his comedic zenith on GB News. I mean, it is funny, but not funny, ha-ha. Funny, what the fuck? These people just despise the idea of the social contract. Well, yeah, exactly. They can't bear the idea that you might have some obligation to other people in your community, 100%.
Please set aside some time in this House for a debate on the international socialist concept of so-called 15-minute cities and 20...
Based and Marx-pilled. Let's fucking go. Sotskarod for all day, every day. Because, yeah, as I said, it is unironic. People keep saying, oh, it's a communist socialist plot. And obviously, that's not what it actually is overall. But it is similar to the kind of urban planning decisions that was made within kind of the Sotskarod paradigm for, you know, socialist utopian cities or whatever it was. In the, you should be able to walk conveniently to be able to get to everything that you need to be able to get to. There should be green areas in within houses to be able to make the area more livable, and there should be through roads, but not the entirety of every single street entirely beholden to motor vehicles, right? That is very similar to the kind of urban planning that the Soviet Union did engage in. And I think it's good urban planning. But engaging in urban planning is not socialism. Just because socialists did it and communists did it doesn't make it communistic in general.
In neighbourhoods. Ultra-low emission zones in their present form do untold economic damage to any city. However, the second step after these zones will take away personal freedoms as well. Sheffield is already on this journey, and I do not want Doncaster, which is also a Labour-run socialist council, to do the same. Low emission zones cost the taxpayer money, simple as. However, 15-minute cities will cost us our personal freedom, and that cannot be right.
And he doesn't even explain how he does it, and in his very monotone voice as well. Apparently it's quite good at cutting down on congestion. Don't know if they ever did that with the M25. Not really the same thing at all as here, but I thought it was interesting. What was that in reference to? I think I missed your comment, MCH, sorry. Simple as, libs owned, let's go. As we all know, socialism is indeed when the government does stuff. Gifts in chat, please.
Well, the minister who answered his question, Penny Mordaunt, did not disagree. So projects like ultra-low emission zones in central London and other British cities is arguably impacting enterprise and is most certainly curtailing our way of life. The Telegraph today report that a low-traffic neighbourhood scheme in Haringey in North London has blocked off certain residential streets with cameras or planters to stop motor traffic using the neighbourhood as a through route. The council...
Let me find this article. Always got to fact check these people. Oh, changed business model. Changed business models overnight. Let me find this article. Unmark High Street was suffering an exodus after a low traffic and neighbourhood changed business models overnight, in quotes. In many ways, it's a middle-class dream, sprinkled with cafes, bistros, Hellenic bakery, and Italian delicatessen. After introducing the low-traffic neighbourhood, blocking off residential streets with 10 cameras or plant to stop motor traffic using this neighbourhood as a through route. In the process, it aims to make it safer easy to walk, blah, 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 blah. In 6 months on, 3/4 of traders on Middleton Road are thinking of leaving the next 18 months, and 3 have already shut up shop thanks to the stupid scheme. Are they actually going to show any evidence that it's the LTN that caused it and not, the whole economic downturn stuff that's happened in the last 6 months? Sheffield Council, by the way, are corrupt as fuck. Got over 20 years of proof having gone up, though. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Labour councils are bad outside of, like Preston and Salford and places like that. It's fairly common in North London. To be honest, I think it's probably BS. I mean, it seems reasonable, but again, this did coincide with loads of shops on the high street shutting down and loads of shops in CBD shutting down because of lack of customers, because people can't afford to purchase, because we literally have a cost of living crisis and a potential recession at some point, at the very least in economic stagnation, which is what usually causes these kinds of things. But maybe they've got evidence later on in the article. Let me have a look. They slapped an LTN on my business. They're punishing the traders up the high street. Mark Merku, the owner of my dental care practice, launched a survey of 40 businesses on it, which found 60% have seen their income drop by 40% or more. I mean, yes, they probably have done, because people can't afford to do things because of the cost of living crisis. When's this article from? 11th of February. So literally in the center of the cost of living crisis. Again, there's no evidence at all any of this. Just people getting the vibes that it must be the LTN because it's there. Right, okay, yeah. Zero evidence for any of this.
Ended its actions, saying it aims to make it safer and easier to walk.
Arbelen, LTN stands for low traffic neighbourhood.
Wheel, scoot, cycle and shop locally. 6 months on, however, and the paper reports that 3/4 of trade...
So I think if you're driving, why would someone need to drive down the road that the shop is on to shop there? The whole point, the people would drive into town and then shop in the place anyway, blocking off that road specifically. Like, why would that affect people's footfall? The clue's in the fucking name. Feet, you walk there. Yeah, people would. Footfall is all about people walking to your shops. Why would people need to drive down that road specifically? Why would that affect the footfall for your business? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Leaders on one Haringey street in particular are thinking of leaving in the next 18
Pedro Egnort with a follow. Welcome to No Justice Stream. Hope you're doing well.
months, and 3 have already shut up shop. One of them is My Little Home Emporium, a once bustling vintage furniture shop that now stands shuttered and derelict, with low-traffic neighbourhood planters blocking the road next to it. Now, some people characterise these 15-minute cities as an effective climate lockdown. Now, I think that's strong language and potentially misleading. I'm not sure that...
Oh my God, Mark Dolan said something correct. They are misleading. Wow. But it's interesting how he's kind of tempered his language. Rather than saying that's not what this is, it's completely different. He said that it's misleading and strong language. No, it's just nonsense. It's just complete nonsense.
That's what they are. Clean air looks to be a big motivating factor, and who doesn't want that? But it's clear that this policy, which local authorities argue will also help get carbon emissions down, is an unprecedented assault on how we go about living our lives, allowing the state...
Yeah, it's true. It's true, yeah. Being able to not use through roads, right? Be able to use public transport. 69 Pro Level, welcome to the No Justice Stream. Hope you're doing well. Exasperated Welsh lefty who lived under Thatcher, welcome to the No Justice Stream. I do hope you are having a good day. But yeah, it's not again the same thing as just like a totalitarian traffic filters. It's so overblown.
To control your movements by car. It genuinely feels like a policy that would happen in mainland China, not Sheffield, Canterbury, Bristol.
I mean, I'm no China simp, but based. Good. I'm glad China would do that if they did do that.
Or that great seat of Western Enlightenment, Oxford. How shameful that any of this should happen in Britain, the home of liberal democracy, the home of free speech, the home of individual self.
No, well, what about the social contract? Surely that's pretty central to kind of the liberal democracy that the UK inhabits.
Determination. People aren't stupid. Most people don't use cars unnecessarily. They get behind the wheel when they...
Yeah, do they though? Are they sensible enough to use their cars when it's only when it's necessary? Is that really true, Mark? Come on, think about that for a second.
need to get somewhere, perhaps taking others with them, dropping the kids off to school, or a builder with colleagues in the back, or taking tools to a job. During the pandemic, when the likes of myself and others warned that we were setting...
Yes, they can do that via the ring road, or 100 times a year, and I'd be willing to bet that there would be an ability to get special dispensation for people who would need the through roads to be able to do their job as somebody who needs to take tools, right? For example, if you're using it in your professional capacity, not as a commuter, but to be able to get to like a job or something. If you're an electrician, for example, it would seem reasonable to me for there to be a waiver to be able to get around the 100 days or whatever and get be able to do that. Or if you're disabled, you've got a blue badge, reasonable. That seems reasonable, right? But people who just want to travel into the centre of town to go shopping, no, use the bus, use the ring road. I don't care. People are stupid. Have you met people? Yeah, well, exactly, 100%. People buy 4x4s for driving over leaves. I think car owners can be stupid and wasteful. Yeah, exactly. Wouldn't it be great if kids could safely walk places or play around in the street, right? There's always the same, like, nostalgia factories who continually saying, what kids are always staying indoors on their iPads. They should be out playing around. Yeah, they can't play around because all of these spaces are reserved for fucking cars. I like park and ride schemes in cities. As usual, though, shame the bus tram fares from the car parks and the outskirts are over expensive. Well, that's another issue, right? Again, I'm fully Luxembourg pilled or Germany pilled, where you either have cheap season passes or you just can decommodify it entirely. Probably better to just keep it as cheap, like season passes, like they do in Germany for a country that's as large as ours, rather than obviously Luxembourg can completely decommodify it because they're quite small. And by quite, I mean very small.
Precedent, allowing the state to encroach so much on our lives, controlling our movements to stop COVID. We were labelled mad conspiracy theorists. Well, state overreach is, in my view, now the norm. And these 15-minute cities, low traffic neighbourhoods and ULEZ zones are just another example. I'm sorry, but in a free...
Yeah, again, it's just another case of motorists and car owners feeling like that they should have the de facto control over all urban spaces, and that anybody else who wants to be able to get a share of that pie by reducing their ability to do so is just a totalitarian dictator. Again, you know what? They always say, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression.
Country, you ought to be able to get in a car and drive wherever you like. But that freedom is starting to feel like a distant memory. These deeply illiberal, un-British 15-minute cities are beyond the pale. They're hurting communities, they're hurting small businesses, and they've got to go. It took
they're not hurting communities. They're really good for communities because you can now walk around in your urban areas and residential areas and speak to your neighbours, have kids playing around in the streets and create a community again, rather than having 90% of the urban areas entirely sectioned off for the sake of motorists.
Less than 15 minutes to realise they're a terrible idea.
Bellend. Right. Next up on the list, we have the protests, right? People have been protesting this stuff. And my God, does the rabbit hole go super fucking deep on this one? People have been protesting this shit because of all of the stuff that we've seen from what people like Casey Hopkins and Mark Dolan have been saying about this stuff, people have gotten so riled up they've been protesting against this stuff. And friend of the show, MUNECAT, with the channel Feed the Machine, she's been doing interviews for them with these protesters. We are fans of MUNECAT on the No Justice stream. We do love her. And we're going to watch her interview these people. My God, it's pretty wild. You want the fucking local butchers and greengrocers back, and this is how you get that back. You have to plumb. Well, exactly. Like they have a nostalgia for the days of yore where you had a local butchers or local greengrocers. They've all been taken over by Tesco because of the fact that we have shitty urban planning.
Now, in the 21st century, freedom is a set of keys.
It's a surveillance prison.
Yeah, my Dom doesn't think so.
It is actually a concentration camp.
Literally, I can't believe it. Martin Jackson in chat, you said that the first stop was traffic filters and then the next stop was concentration camps. And they literally, as a joke, and this person's saying it literally unironically. It's all Eastern European shops now, which is fucking based. True, that is based.
I think it's all part of their plan, just to try and keep us as contained as possible.
And you can see, right, there's this through line with how hippies have now turned into the QAnon-style right-wing conspiracy theorists on this stuff, right? The hippies have all gotten involved in this. You can see, you'll see it in parts of this video, which are bits that I've watched already, is that they're the people who had a belief, who had skepticism towards the establishment powers, 40, 50 years ago or whatever it was, right? The people who then didn't also become Marxists, have forgotten, who never learned material analysis, they're ripe to be drawn in by, right-wing conspiracy theories because they don't know how these systems work and they don't know the powers that are at play and the material interest of the people implementing things. So they have been very easy to get sucked into conspiracy shit because those hippies now also TERFs as well. It's really weird, again, because they were old school hippies who are now middle class old people. And their own material interests have changed. So the kind of establishment overreach that they get angry about has also changed, right? They're now wealthy enough to be able to just drive a car everywhere. And so now they think that the establishment power is when they can't drive down certain roads, rather than, imperialist wars or whatever that they used to protest about. Well, they are at least now middle-class wankers out for their own interest. They may not have been previously, but again, the lack of material analysis is the problem. The whole Age of Aquarius movement did have a lot of essentializing people, it seems like. Yeah, that's probably true. Also, by the way, if you're enjoying the content, you can become, people watching on YouTube, you can become a member for 99p. And you can also like the stream if you can. If you're watching on Twitch, you can either subscribe for $3.99 or you can link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account, get one free subscription every month, which you can use on me or one of the other excellent creators on this platform. Or if you don't want to subscribe, you can drop bits or go click the donate link at the bottom there. Shill, because, if you don't shill, you don't get, apparently. Learn that from Chud Logic.
Research the World Economic Forum. Research Klaus Schwab. It's about domination, rule control, and it will evolve into a tyranny. Reject the New World Order.
They'll have to prise my old Ford truck out of my cold dead hands.
What can you do in 15 minutes? Well, creepy local authority bureaucrats would like to see your entire existence boiled down to the duration of a quarter of an hour, with the arrival of so-called 15-minute cities.
What if we could create a new normal where we reclaim our time, our health and well-being, and our communities?
This is the idea behind the 15-minute city.
It's really...
Well, yeah, my mum works in planning, JDM, and she's told me loads of stories where she has to get in email slap fights, theoretically, with NIMBYs about like housing construction projects too. I can't imagine how frustrating it must be. And she had her stuff about the 15-minute things where she got into an argument with some boss when she was trying to put these things. If she reworded it about like convenient living or whatever, people had no problem. As soon as she mentioned 15-minute cities, all fucking hell broke loose. Steady on, I'm an old hippie and I think these people are dingbats. Oh, I'm a historical materialist. That's how I avoided that. True, 100%. The Morpheus speech about people fighting to maintain a system that's oppressing them gets more relevant daily. Well, yeah, exactly, 100% Lincoln Bio. I mean, fucking Right Said Fred have been involved in these protests too. Peace and love, hate and 4x4s, turn on, tune up and bought out. Yeah, exactly, 100% Scribby. it's scary how old activist friends of yours are anti-vaxxers. Again, because the anti-vax conspiracy theory is a lack of material analysis. They see the corporations doing bad stuff and think that the problem is the vaccines and not the fact that the vaccines are owned by corporations. Like, the scientists that manufacture the vaccines have pure intentions as scientists. It's the corporations that control the distribution and the sale of them that are the issue.
Just saying that every urban citizen should be able to meet their basic needs within a 15-minute walk or cycle ride from their house.
Well, Oxford has something called a 15-minute city that they want to implement.
6 new traffic filters in the city, which will make buses faster and cycling safer.
Oxford residents will be able to apply for a free permit to drive through the filters on up to 100 days a year. You will still be able to drive to every part of the city, but at certain times of the day, you may need to take a different route if you want to travel by car.
That's communism, that is.
We expect these traffic filters to reduce congestion and air pollution in our city, make bus journeys faster and more reliable, and make walking and cycling safer for everyone.
Welcome to dystopia. It's absolutely terrifying.
Would I go so far to say evil? Extreme. I would say it's an extreme idea.
You will only have 15 minutes of freedom.
The Oxfordshire County Council approved plans to lock residents into one of 6 zones to save the planet from global warming. Protests against the decision are being organised to take place in February.
15-minute cities. Yeah, no, it's scary.
He's wearing a fucking NASA hoax t-shirt. Like, as soon as you're around like moon landing conspiracy theorists, you know you've gone down the fucking rabbit hole, haven't you?
What we're living in. We're living under tyranny.
And then we just wondered if you wanted to chat to us for a second about 15-minute cities and why you think they're a dystopian hell.
The 15-minute city is a severe limitation of human freedom. It's effectively locking people down into human settlement zones.
It's townships. It is creating townships. It's taking us back to those feudal times, where by the grace of the travelling bards that used to come to us and give us the history and the outside news. It's stopping our development as humanity.
It's undemocratic, it's tyranny, and it's an example of our globalist government.
This is someone who's comparing vaccination to like Nazi trials or like Nazi experiments. Human settlement zones, also known as towns. Like Lisa Nandy's all on top of that. Feudalism was argued better, at least you owned your house. True.
Following the New World Order regime, isn't it, an agenda? They want to enslave us and they want complete control. We're in a war.
And you can see they're all fucking middle class. They're all boomers and they're all middle class, right? The kind of people who've literally had, again, people who've been pandered to by public policy for the past 50 years, and suddenly things are not being entirely pandered to their needs specifically, and the toys are instantly out of the pram, and it's a New World Order takeover. These people have had their brains broken by Facebook and policy failures. Does MUNECAT do anything outside of YouTube? I think she's a YouTuber full time now. She streams on Twitch. She does YouTube videos on her own channel. She does guest stuff for Feed the Machine and also for More Perfect Union too. All white as well. I know that there are non-white people do show up in this video as far as I'm aware. Driving limitations equals apartheid. Yes, it is. I will segregate all of the motorists out of good society.
Fucking neoliberalism.
Tyrannax with a gifted sub. Thank you. Welcome to the Justice stream. Again, I much appreciate your contribution. And she does music as well. She does release music on like Spotify and although she includes the music in her YouTube videos. And she makes up on her Twitch streams, she'll make up music on the fly as well. She got like a soundboard as part of her stream set up, and it's really good. I really wish my streams were as slick and polished as MUNECAT's are.
The higher echelons of the medical profession are liars and murderers, Murderers.
Slowly, we are being having our freedoms restricted. We are having our movements surveilled, controlled. They're looking to bring in digital.
I mean, me and MUNECAT have been in the DMs, but I think I'm pretty small fry to be collaborating with someone who's as big and as popular and as wide-reaching as MUNECAT. Unless you're watching, Georgie, in which case I'd love to collaborate, but it would mean but I always, with people like that, I always wait for them to reach out to me so it doesn't look like that I'm clout chasing. So there's a bunch of people I'd love to collaborate with. Timber on Toast, another mutual I've got on Twitter. I'd love to collaborate with Tim Brontos, because Tim Brontos is the best YouTuber. His content is the best content on YouTube. It's not close. Go follow Tim Brontos. He is very, very good.
IDs by the end of this year. Consultation ends March. So all of this together with the 15-minute city idea that you can get everything that you need within 15...
MCH, you're guessing she's trying to say that being unvaxxed has been made such a disreputable thing that it's like having a Nazi yellow star on you. I mean, the thing is that maybe that was the case, that you could make... I don't think it was the case, but you could theoretically make that case like 12 months ago. But now everyone's in this mindset that the pandemic's over. Obviously it's not, but they feel like the pandemic is over. So people's discussion around vaccination is stopped now, right? People have just stopped talking about vaccination really, and the idea of the pandemic being in the public consciousness has really kind of drifted away.
15 minutes of where you live. If you wrap all of that up together with the added surveillance, it's starting to look less like an environmental solution and more like a control solution.
Are you from Oxford yourself?
No.
Yeah. Convenience is being controlling you is when you have convenience that's just convenient for anyone who's not a motorist. The zoom in on the face is priceless, but I think that if you're going to be putting out interview content, you need to be. I think one of the rules of interview content really has to be not trying to prime your audience to disagree with the people that you're interviewing. I think it's really important to do that, and zooming in on the mouth, it does lend the idea that you're trying to prime the audience to thinking that these people are nutters. Obviously they are nutters, but you don't need to have weird camera angles to try and put that across to people.
From Suffolk. I'm semi-retired, so I have time to make placards and hand out light papers and leaflets and try and wake people up.
What's interesting as well, the sign there says not 15-minute cities, they're 15-minute ghettos. I'm like, oh, so you care about ghettos existing, do you? Oh, okay. I never heard you support the idea of regeneration of downtrodden areas where poor people live. In fact, you don't like additional housing being built, or because it might affect your the price of your property value. It's weird how ghettos are only bad when it happens to you, even though they're not. They're just urban areas with easily reachable amenities. That's what that actually is. Like, these, again, it just shows how privileged, how mollycoddled these middle-class people really are. What's your job and why is it landlord? Or almost certainly landlords. I mean, a lot of these are pensioners, so they probably do have additional rental income coming in as well. You've got to remember, quarter of pensioners are millionaires. I'll say it every time.
Deep down into the COVID scam, I can tell you.
What do you think is the connection to fascism here?
It's not Hitlerian fascism, but it's all coming from the same control idea. It's eco-left fascism. I mean, it's just criminal lunacy. The idea that we should be in prison.
That's not what fascism is. Fascism is like ultra nationalism. Obviously, it is totalitarian in nature, but just because it's just totalitarianism and fascism are not the same thing, right? Even if obviously the 15 minutes it isn't totalitarian, what he thinks it is would be totalitarian, right? If people were getting locked into their 15-minute zones and they were not allowed to leave at all, or weren't allowed to go into the centre of town at all, right? Which isn't the case, because they can always leave and they can always go to the other areas as long as it's via the fucking ring road, or if they don't use a fucking car. Like, if they were locked in the 15-minute areas, that would be totalitarian, but it still wouldn't be fascism, because it's not got the element of ultranationalism that is specific to fascist ideology.
In 15-minute zones, and that if we go out of our zone over a certain number of times a year, that we get fined. Obviously it's done with your cars, but eventually you can see the direction of travel.
So yeah, another slippery slope fallacy where it's like, it's cars now, but it's going to be everything else later. No, it really fucking isn't. And even then, it's not even cars currently, because you can still go to the other areas if you use the ring road.
It's...
I think it's a slippery slope.
Absolutely, totally, yeah. It's so scary, it's so nightmarish.
Look, shrinkflation.
It is Agenda 21.
They're getting us by the cream eggs, guys.
And it is Agenda 30, and I've been piecing it together for about 7 years. and the jigsaw just gets more and more complicated, but it all matches.
All these things are connected, so it all links together, unfortunately.
Well, everything's connected, it's all part of their agendas. If people look deeply into any of their agendas, it's all there in black and white. Very, very simple.
This is a UN agenda, it's Agenda 2030, it's from the World Economic Forum.
The New World Order is Agenda 2030, where they want us all to own nothing and be happy. Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Schwab, if you're watching this, we're not having it. We are the many, they are the few.
So it's so to hear them say many against the many against the few in regards to fucking traffic filters and not in regards to gigantic corporate control and over-commodification of the entirety of our society, genuinely makes me want to go full seppuku. Like, hands down, these people didn't vote for Jeremy Corbyn. You know they didn't vote for Jeremy Corbyn. I'm just like, literally, you're handing over entire control of your lives to gigantic mega corporations who are beholden to the neoliberal capitalist economics, and you're getting angry at urban planning. Get a fucking sense of perspective. I'm just so nightmarish again, because these people are right to think that something is wrong. These people are right to think that far too much of our lives are beholden to very powerful people. The powerful people are not just random evil cabals of people. It's rich people driven by the profit motive, which is the root cause of all of the shit that you're seeing right now. Just not traffic filters, which are being done by democratically elected officials and not by completely unaccountable super billionaires. They probably did vote for Jeremy Corbyn because they thought he was anti-Semitic. I mean, that's that. I don't know whether that's good or not. Obviously, it's not good if they're being anti-Semitic, but ends justify the means, right? We should go there and thank them in the name of German car companies. Yeah, true. Yeah, these people are the genuine cucks. They're all cucked to Audi, right? Clearly, we're gonna. If these people had their way, Nissan would be absolutely raking it in with sales of Qashqais.
Fuck communism! Fuck communism!
What do you think is the end goal of all of this?
Well, for them, total enslavement of humanity. For us, obviously, the goal is to oust these Satanists out of positions of power.
It's a sad but wonderful journey.
What does Satan have to do with this? And it's eerily similar to QAnon, isn't it? Right? Although they haven't got any kind of Q figure star like Donald Trump who's going to break this shit up. They don't have anything, really. Don't read up on VW history in the 30s. True! Ask him to describe communism. I mean, obviously these people don't know what communism is. They just mean totalitarianism. Which it's a shame.
Literally a communist.
Carpio Pax with the follow. Welcome to the Justice Stream. Hope you're doing well. Interesting for the follow notification to come up then, considering of the discussion about their understanding of communism. True, and socialism is when the government does stuff, Karen Saunders. And Fancy Wookie got that in chat already. Never ask who built the tanks for Ferdinand.
Among all these lovely people, and it's been a lovely journey, and I've met beautiful people, and that's what it's all about. Truth and love.
I hope this music is all composed by MUNECAT, so it's not going to get copyright striked for my YouTube stream.
I think most people here seem nice, but I think we're all in bubbles at the moment online, and they've kind of fallen down some rabbit holes. I was speaking to some very nice people just 2 minutes ago, and they believe the Earth's flat. They got very offended when I called them conspiracy theories whilst they were explaining to me a conspiracy, which I find interesting. I mean, yeah, the LTNs, they implemented it really badly, the council, really badly, and that's caused a lot of strife. And I think there's like a legitimate discussion to have there. But also, it's all to do with austerity.
Fuck the Raj and the posse!
Only fucker. I haven't heard many solutions from these people, you know. Like homelessness.
Well, you can see the kind of the Trumpist stuff coming through, because that's seems to me like a reference to, you know, grab her by the pussy statement that, you know, that everyone kind of tried to defend Trump over. This video has been demonetized due to a copyright claim by MUNECAT Incorporated. And I'm probably going to get copyright cucked by the GB News segment that we watched as well. So the Earth isn't flat. Shock.
Worse, like, you look similar age to me. We're the first generation in 100 years going to be poorer than our parents. I wish there was this kind of anger for these kind of issues that are affecting.
True and based. Love this guy. Big fan of this guy. Obviously, you know, of course I am.
People, they're like not being able to feed their children rather than some blocks of wood in the roads. Horrible people like Lawrence Fox and Katie Hopkins, Tommy Robinson, that moron Jordan Peterson, who doesn't know what he's talking about. I wish people like that had stayed out of it. You know, I wish it would stayed a local issue.
I love you, Mum. I love you. We've got it.
I mean, we're protesting for fashion.
No, we're not. We're not doing
we just want to see what's happening.
I live in Oxford, and the plan is a very bad plan. I walk, I cycle, I use my car a bit. It'll have a little bit of an impact on me personally, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here because it's kind of a last straw question for me. The political class just think they can ignore us and do whatever they want. It's a regressive tax. The zero emission zone, it's a regressive tax. The cameras which allow electric cars through but not diesel and petrol cars, it's a regressive measure. People can afford all of it.
He is right, and that's the one criticism that I do have in the, you know, just no cars at all, right? Again, mostly it should be about that, because as far as I'm concerned, the main justification for 15-minute cities and that kind of legislation is to make cities more walkable. And just because a car's electric, it doesn't mean it needs more space. That doesn't mean it doesn't need more space. It doesn't mean that it doesn't impact the ability for people to be able to get through places by their means, right? If, for example, everyone just drove electric cars, we would still have to have shitty urban planning that was incredibly car-centric. And that's not what I want. That's not what's good. What we actually need is people to take public transport, walk, bike, cycle, etc. In the end, it's all about slowing the right down till time takes their voter base. Well, yeah, true.
Those things are fine. People who can't afford those things, they have to get out their car and walk. Some people have some crazy ideas here, you know, the conspiracy theorists and all that. I'm not into that. We are local people who want the opinions of Oxford residents to be taken seriously.
I wonder what he would say though if I went to him and said, well, actually no, we don't want to do electric vehicles, right? You know, we just want if you're using a car, use the fucking ring road. It's not regardless of whether it's a petrol car or an electric car. Just use public transport, use the ring road. I wonder what he would say if that was the modification to the policy, because I would be fine with that modification. But it seems to me that if he's willing to be out there and protest and say that's an affront to democracy, then maybe he would. I don't think he would be willing to see to my point there. Literally not enough lithium for one replacement. Well, that's also true.
Live in a 15-minute prison because that's what's coming to you. Stand up, research, tell your MP to go and resign. Tell everybody that's pushed the last 3 years to resign, because when this is over, we the people want justice.
Famously, you'll not be getting any justice because there is no justice. I'm sorry, I'll stop now. Oxford looked better on Morse, true. Neurons are wiring and firing, but not necessarily in the right order.
What's the end goal of 15-minute cities, Klaus?
To control all the useless eaters when Satan arrives and proclaims kingdom on the earth.
Okay, I see.
Do you eat bugs?
I don't eat bugs, no.
Why not?
I'm vegan, actually.
Ayo! What's interesting as well is that, a lot of the World Economic Forum, what they do specifically is that they want to ensure that the excesses of capital get maintained to preserve capitalism, right? There's always I think Warren Buffett always says that, the smart capitalists will want to preserve the system through redistribution. And that's not what the World Economic Forum exists to do. It's the Lady Macbeth trying to clean the blood off her hands of hypercapitalism, where they will try and plaster solutions over the structural inequalities and structural failures of capitalism to try and maintain the system, so justify their obscene amounts of wealth and the damage that it does. Rather than fixing the problem, they think that they can atone for their sins by engaging in effective altruism.
Is being controlled. The New World Order is controlling your city, and you are just going to be guinea pigs as of next year, and then it will spread to Canterbury, London, and all over the country. So everybody needs to wake up, learn the facts.
If people get mad about it in Canterbury, I hope it means that they vote out Rosie Duffield. I might go campaign in Canterbury and try and tell people that Rosie Duffield is trying to control people. Not point out that she's transphobic or anything. So no, she's all pro 50-minute city. Vote for anybody other than Rosie Duffield.
Unite and fight this now.
Useless eaters is Nazi rhetoric. Please do explain, Mario. And I was not aware of that.
Have you got opinions on climate change? Do you think it's an emergency?
No, of course it's not. It's a bloody hoax. Climate changes. I'm 54 years old. I was around in 1976 when we had one of the hottest summers ever.
Yeah, she definitely didn't vote for Corbyn then.
It was glorious.
Climate has changed since the beginning of, since 4.5 billion years ago, and it will continue changing. It's certainly not an emergency.
Yeah, that's true. Climate does change, but, it also changes in response to man-made stimuli. That also happens sometimes.
You see, climate change, there is no climate emergency. The fraud of climate change is primarily being promoted to make the United Nations effectively a one-world government tyranny.
Man couldn't change the climate, even if they tried. You control people's minds. If they're afraid, they don't think. They think you'll protect them. It's been going on always. I mean, man on the moon? Hello? Think about it.
See, it's all conspiracies happy to get rolled into one, right? It's just QAnon Part 2, this one, really, isn't it?
Do you think that was a hoax as well?
Well, I know it's a hoax, and you do too.
They use useless eaters as a eugenics talking point regarding people with developmental issues. Is it possible that the sign... I didn't see the sign. Is it possible the sign that they are on was trying to claim that the government is also using Nazi rhetoric to refer to them, which obviously is stupid, but doesn't make the people in the crowd fascist, if you know what I mean. The climate should be getting cooler, but we keep breaking hottest years on record over and over. Yeah, it's true. The Nazis called whole swathes of occupied populations, the old kids, etc., as useless eaters, and therefore okay to unalive. Well, in which case, it sounds like they think that that's what the government is doing to them, rather than their view on somebody else.
If you think about it, you will. And no, I'm not in that case.
Hate to break it to you, you may be very silly. What is it? There's an Abe Simpson bit where it's just like, I am not a crackpot. That would have been a great little segue. As soon as you go, I am not a nutcase, just clip over to Grandpa Simpson going, I am not a nutcase, I am not a crackpot. Although again, that would break my rule of interview videos about mocking the people and priming people against the people you're interviewing. If you think about it, I studied astrophysics. Like, I know that the moon landing was real.
So it's just about going and finding us, not mainstream media.
We're not 100% sure what the 15-minute city was, so I just asked somebody there, and what about the fact that they're holding placards saying that there's no climate emergency, when I think that actually the predominantly the majority of scientists all over the world say that we are in a climate emergency. So I don't believe that. And I think a lot of people here, when they say, oh, as soon as you start saying things like mainstream media, that's a trigger warning for me. Because it means a lot of people are getting their research from YouTube. No offence to YouTube, I watch it all the time. But you can end up very quickly going down a rabbit hole. And one YouTuber says, oh, you shouldn't listen to this YouTuber, you should listen to this YouTuber. And then algorithms kick in and people start, and it's not the best way to go.
Whatever the government's selling you, don't fucking buy it. Simple as that. Whatever we're told on the television, turn it 180 and get the truth. Well, I came out and protested.
True. Instead, we're going to buy things from mega corporations because they're far more trustworthy, right, guys?
London during the COVID lockdowns, and I think the COVID lockdowns were just a blueprint and just to see how easily people would be manipulated into staying at home and being scared. And now we've gone from a COVID agenda.
And again, this is exactly the same rhetoric that we all heard from the Katie Hopkins video, which again she disproved in her own video. The way she continued, even after disproving herself, then just lying about it and trying to get people to focus on the actual lie there, and that same rhetoric is spread down to everybody else. And these people aren't. Well, they probably are stupid, but then also they're not just stupid. But even if they aren't, they're also vulnerable and scared, and are being manipulated by people who have a material interest in keeping them as part of the cult for financial reasons, because that's how they make their money for ad revenue on the YouTubes, right? By getting people to sign up to their Patreons, by making them scared about the things that they're lying about to try and keep them in the cult for financial reasons. And these people are vulnerable, and they're getting caught up in this stuff by incredibly bad actors.
Do a climate agenda, so we're going to have climate lockdowns. We're going from, COVID scam to the climate scam, CO2.
They want control over almost every aspect of your life. Climate lockdown could be called for. It's like a COVID lockdown, a climate lockdown.
City Council in Oxfordshire, England has approved a climate lockdown plan that will be implemented in 2024.
Oxfordshire. Never ever. Hearing Americans pronounce British place names. Hate it.
You must stay at home.
Lockdown was a painful and traumatic event in response to a deadly pandemic, which became fertile ground for conspiracy. Street protests took place all over the world.
Bilderberg gifting the sub. Thank you. Thank you for the support as always. Cheers.
A nebulous movement has since.
Anyone else wants to subscribe, drop bits, donate, anything like that? We can try and make the train go choo choo. We're my second hype choo choo. So please do consider contributing. And future YouTube viewers, you can become a member for just 99p. It's super cheap to become a member on YouTube to support the stream.
Grown, existing on and offline in Telegram groups and weekly meetups in parks across the country.
fertile ground for fucking neoliberalism. No problem, Pedro. It's not a problem. It's never expected, but always appreciated. Morton with the gifted subs. Thank you, Kev. Much appreciated. As always. Thank you. That is you are too kind.
A new frontier for this anti-lockdown movement is against potential measures to fight global warming, with climate change denial and libertarian freedom-loving mindsets being two core ingredients in this conspiracy smoothie. But the idea of a climate lockdown really took hold after a series of missteps from liberal media. As we entered lockdown in 2020, several articles were written warning that action against climate change would need to happen urgently in order to prevent a climate lockdown. These weren't proposing climate lockdowns, but laying out the steps needed to actually avoid them. Yet they were often accompanied with clickbaity headlines designed to create as much engagement as possible.
Oh god, and she's so right about the headlines. I hate them. Like, I'm so kind of intimately aware of this because of the way in which you'll see articles about trans people where the headline is specifically done to convey the wrong message from the article, to get people worked up, to be able to get the shares, to see it, make it go viral, to be able to push the narrative. Because you'll literally see, like, the headline the Telegraph went with was "Man fired from school after misgendering pupil," to try and make it look like they're getting fired because of it, when really, actually, they were getting fired for a bunch of other stuff that was completely unrelated. But they try and make you link that because the headlines aren't there to convey meaning. They're there to be able to get shares, to go viral, to clickbait people. And I hate it so much. And she's absolutely right that that's the problem with this kind of stuff.
Possible. This was leapt upon by a growing alternative media ecosystem of YouTubers, right-wing websites and streamers profiting from fear and paranoia. The cat was out of the bag, and the
It's scary how people, some of whom are really not stupid, have justifiably lost so much faith in the institutions and are so scared of them that they'll buy into every conspiracy theory. Yeah, exactly, 100%. It's why having, a future prime minister who is an authoritarian and who lies all the time and is deceitful and refuses to be sincere is dangerous for democracy. In the form of Sir Keith and also Boris Johnson, both of them liars, both of them deceitful. Both of them, undermining the institutions they're supposed to represent is only going to further erode people's trust in politics and lead to more of this kind of stuff happening.
The narrative of climate lockdown started to dominate the Telegram channels and offline conversations happening at meetups. Whereas conspiracies often emerge from below, this one came from above. Discontent with an out-of-touch political class is high after decades of neoliberalism and austerity, and shrewd politicians from the far right are ready to fill the void. Jordan Peterson is here to fill your gaping hole, society. And so now we're here, a furious protest against traffic filters and a couple of blocks in the road, with baffled local politicians wondering where this all came from. We went to meet one. Alex Hollingsworth is a Labour councillor here in Oxford.
How's it going? Where do you want me?
Right. It's a 100-year-old concept, at least. It's an entirely innocuous one. It's very difficult to work out how it's been turned into this. It's basically all it means is don't build cities where the only way you can reach your local shops, your local pub is by car. I mean, where we're standing here in Jericho, you've got a primary school there,
Reminds me of the violence erupts after police shoot suspect line that Abigail Thorne used in her video on violence. So much the media does with framing. Yeah, 100%, you're absolutely right. And yes, BMJ, NYT columnists do it all the time. Yeah, it's crazy shit. Trans people are the worst victims at the moment to the desire for newspapers to want to be able to go viral, to be able to hit view quotas, rather than their desire to be factual, because virality is more important at this point, because that's where their business model lies. They made sure to include the low confidence qualifications in the report from the DOE on the lab leak origin for COVID. Well, yeah, that's good for CNN at least. But no one trusts CNN because because of the legitimate criticisms that you can have of CNN's close ties to the Democratic establishment. Because they are compromised on one area in which they report on, people will then distrust the ways in which they report on other things too.
a chapel there, got a school there, got a pub, the band on there, more pubs and shops up there. That's just normal neighbourhood. You know, you walk to those places if you can, you meet your friends, you meet your neighbours, you have a chat. That's what people like. So how we've ended up with this kind of bizarre notion that it's, I mean, I've heard it described as unpatriotic, I mean, corner shops, you can't get more British than a corner shop, and yet we've got people saying they're not British, they're unpatriotic, it's some kind of foreign plot. It's very...
Yeah, I see what you mean, Mario Range, yeah.
Very odd.
A lot of people that we were talking to at the protest today, they're saying that they responded to this consultation, and they're saying most people's feedback has been completely ignored, and then you went ahead with it anyway.
Well, and the County Council did do a consultation. They had open-ended questions, and that open-ended question has been distorted massively. So 7% of people just wrote support, and 93% wrote other things, which ranged from I'm completely opposed to I don't think this is quite right, we need to do this, and a whole load of other things in between. When there was an actual opinion poll, so you know, something which wasn't a consultation, but something which was, you know, a scientific study, it showed 2/3 of people in favour of things like the LTNs, 2/3 of people in favour of things like the bus filters. So you know, when you do a consultation,
and that's a really interesting, like talking about studies and surveys, framing also really matters there, right? A lot of times YouGov have proposed a question with a very leading conclusion to it, and it'll change the way people answer the questions. It's really, really strange, because when my mum was talking about 15-minute cities as a planner, and then if you reworded it to not be about 15-minute cities but to sound a different way, people would then change their opinion on it. It's really the act of taking surveys and using that to make inferences about demographics and stuff is super, super interesting. Pedro Agnot, the MTG stands for Magic the Gathering.
Have to have it as one of a series of things you take into account, and I think that's what the County Council have done. Personally, I think they could have done their communications a bit better. I think the pandemic it was a real issue because this is a scheme that's been 5 years in development, and the pandemic knocked it off course. The anti-lockdown conspiracy theory, I think what that did was it took maybe some genuine concerns, and concerns I've got some sympathy with, you know, the surveillance state and things like that, you know, the plethora of cameras and stuff like that. You know, people should have concerns about privacy and about control and about state observation. Anyone who looks at what China has done with facial recognition software and things like that should be worried about what technology, when it's used the wrong way, can do. So
yeah, so it's the worst kind of conspiracy theory, Kieran, isn't it? The ways in which if someone is also scared about having access to their group of other conspiracists, something that's also locking them down is going to absolutely spread like wildfire in those circles. You're absolutely right. The MTG is so people know that I'm a nerd. I do play MTG on stream as well, to be fair. I do sometimes play Magic when I'm on stream.
I think when you have that, and then you have a kind of crisis like COVID, like the coronavirus crisis, and with the lockdowns that came with it, you can see how that can be amplified and joined together. What there are people who are happy to amplify those conspiracy theories because it makes them money.
We support the LTNs, we support the 15-minute neighbourhoods. Cars are bad, get rid of the cars. We don't want them in central Oxford. So I don't really know what these people are on about. I think it's a lot of nonsense, a lot of conspiracy theory and
David Icke,
fuck the cars.
like types
I ride an Italian motorcycle. I've got an 1100 Moto Guzzi, California. Italian design for the American market, but hey, it's a motorcycle. It's an iron steed. This is the 21st century. This is why King Arthur rides a motorcycle and doesn't ride a horse. You know why? You can't take it on the motorway. Okay.
Well, that's the protests covered. Yes, Prime Minister did a great skit from Sir Humphrey on that opinion poll point. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, that covers the protesters themselves, right? Now, someone mentioned in chat a while back that there was a point originally with one of the protests there. Someone from an Oxford newspaper did an interview with a guy who's from Patriotic Alternative. Now, they're a far right group who organised the riots in Knowsley. And this guy was literally admitted on camera to this reporter, "I'm a white nationalist, but I'm not here to protest racial issues. I'm here to protest 15-minute cities." Because what's happened with every conspiracy, the far right have tried to seize on this for political gain. Because they know that distrust institutions and the falling living standards and all that is going to be a fertile place for them to be able to recruit to their ideology, right? They always using scapegoats to essentially paper over the cracks of societal failures is the key recruitment tool for the far right. They did it with QAnon, right? And even when they'll try and twist people's genuine concerns, and then they will try and blame, especially when you materialize things and people want to find some kind of secretive cabal to blame. You know what's a really secretive cabal to blame, right? Starts with a J, who the far right usually hate, for example. And so they've used this as a recruitment tool to be able to get involved with this stuff. They did it with QAnon. They did it with, they're doing it obviously with turfism as well, right? The amount of turfs getting converted to the far right. They're with anti-vaxxers. They're doing it with this now too. Like, so you see how like Graham Linehan is now an anti-vaxxer because he got so caught up in the turf rhetoric, and the far right have been able to recruit from there. They're so good at outreach and recruitment. I obviously don't want to give it to these people. And there's one last piece that we're going to watch on this for this over 2-hour long segment I'm doing here about 15-minute cities. Fucking hell, lasts a long time. Because Sadiq Khan was correct in referring to the fact that a lot of these protests around these traffic filters or whatever have been hijacked by the far right. And GB News have said it's his new low, calling the protesters far right, or at least some of the protesters far right. And I think this is Emily Carver, friend of the show from the Institute of Economic Affairs. So interesting to see what they say for this one.
The London Mayor has said some protesters against ultra-low emission expansion in London are far-right COVID.
So she's already actually admitted that he's only said that it's some protesters. And that's just true? It is just true that far-right groups have tried to infiltrate these protests? Like when you literally saw the people in the Oxford protest on there saying, yes, I'm a white nationalist, but I'm not here being racist. I'm here to protest the cities. Like, we already have the evidence that there is a non-zero number of far-right protesters at these events. Like, he's just correct in saying that. We have the evidence to prove it.
Or vaccine deniers. Here's a clip of Sadiq Khan's comments at People's Question Time event where demonstrators gathered outside.
What I find unacceptable, though, is some of those who've got legitimate objections joining hands with some of those outside who are part of a far-right group who are...
true. And he's even made sure to completely qualify that there is it's the people with genuine concerns, obviously silly genuine concerns, but genuine concerns nonetheless, are a different group from the far right people who are hijacking the event. He's been very clear to capture that it's only some of them, and it's only part of that some of them, and it's people who have less than noble intentions to try and hijack the event. He's made all of his qualifications, and people are still twisting his words out of context.
Some of those outside. Some of those. Let's be frank. Let's call a spade a spade. Some of those outside are part of the far right. Some are COVID deniers.
They are COVID. We literally saw them in the interview that MUNECAT was doing in the video we just watched with the whole unvaxxed shit. They were already COVID deniers. They say Katie Hopkins saying that all of the COVID stuff was being done as a trial, pulling the levers to try and get you to believe in this stuff, right? To try and see what amount of authoritarianism that they would accept, right? It's already been shown. We have the evidence of this.
Deniers, and some are Tories.
Vaccine deniers and Tories in the same sentence. Charming. So is Khan right?
I mean, don't know which one's worse.
I don't think so. Or is this an unfair characterisation of the protesters? Joining me is London Assembly member Susan Hall, who is the leader of the City Hall Conservatives. Now, I've got on Susan today because she has been very vocal.
I don't think I've ever seen someone look more middle class, right? Maybe it's the folders in the background and the fact that every single unit is in white, right? That's a very middle class thing, isn't it?
About Sadiq Khan's...
As well as being obviously a Conservative member of the London Assembly.
Well, an outburst, really. What do you make of it all?
Well, I mean, this is a new low for him, isn't it? I was sitting one along from him. He was absolutely furious that anybody should question what he was saying and what he was doing.
Because he's just correct. He's just stating a literal statement of fact.
Calling us all far right, and he lumped the Tories in with that, which was unacceptable. But people were there justifiably complaining about the ULEZ. I've been out on the doorsteps today.
Yeah, he even said that he literally said in the statement you've just played that there are plenty of people with genuine concerns. He's already addressed this point. You showed the clip. What?
Talking to people.
The amount to which these people will just do that. They'll just play a clip or they'll state a fact and then contradict it like 5 seconds later as if we've not just all heard those words being said.
And some people are almost in tears because they cannot afford to replace their cars. And I live in Harrow, so we're right on the outskirts of London, and they just don't know what they're going to do. And he just doesn't listen. He's not interested in what anybody says. As you know, he did a consultation which showed that people didn't want it. But
this is all covered in the genuine concerns bit, right?
Actually ordered the cameras before the consultation had finished. So, it was a predetermination there. I mean, he was clearly going to go ahead whatever happened.
Susan, I think it sounds like he's getting more desperate, and that's why he's throwing around these kind of accusations. But for the
it's just not an accusation, it's just true. It's just true.
Purpose of balance, can you tell me that there weren't any far-right protesters?
I mean, also, that's true for Arbalin points out in chat, show me the motorists' tears, I will drink them. Absolutely, let's fucking go. But there's a legitimate point that she's making. The legitimate point and a genuine concern that she is making that is true. In that, if there are people who do get hit by these things, who are too poor to replace their cars, that is bad for them. I do understand that they're actual concerns. But as far as Bilderberg was pointing out in chat, even a BMW X5 manufactured after 2015 would not get hit by the ultra low emission stuff anyway. Presenter's face reminds me of the Aphex Twin masks. Oh my god! It's the woman Richard D. James! What's going on? Oh god, that's so mean to Emily Carver. But you know what? She works for the Institute of Economic Affairs, so I have no intention of being nice to her. Look, the GLA needs the money, as Bojo and his government didn't really fund them during COVID. Well, yeah, true. Although they've got enough for free school meals.
That there weren't any COVID vaccine deniers at the...
I mean, just to be fair, yeah, if we can use ultra-low emission zones and congestion charges to fund free school meals for kids, fucking based, super based.
This protest.
I didn't see any inside the hall. I got to the event long before it started. I was there at 6, and there were some people milling around outside. When colleagues came in later, I said, is there anybody outside? And somebody was saying that they were making vehicles honk as they went by if they agreed with them that the ULEZ should be stopped. So I didn't actually see any. There may have been a couple. I honestly don't know. I was inside.
But that's the thing. The purpose of what he said, in my opinion, was to blanket anyone who disagreed with him with the same brush, tar everyone with the same brush. But this is a trend that we're seeing in politics in general, isn't it? I mean, Nicola Sturgeon has said similar things about people who disagreed with her about her gender recognition reform bill. Is this just a way for people with progressive politics, left-wing politics, to discredit anyone who disagrees with them?
Well, I think it is. I mean, it's very unfortunate.
But we've seen the far right people. He literally said, "I'm a white nationalist." Like,
we've seen Angela Rayner refer to Tories as scum, and apparently that's quite a common term. I remember.
Yeah, it is, because you are tough shit. Don't want to be scum. Don't do scummy things.
Once delivering leaflets and said it, "No scum Tory here." I can honestly say I've never heard any of my colleagues use any of those words to people that are in other parties. There's no need. We've got different political views, and we should have every right to say them. But I get on just as well with the leaders of the other groups in City Hall as I do with my own members. Clearly, we've got policy disagreements, but behaviour like this from Khan was just dreadful, and he was furious because he was being shouted at, and he just doesn't like that. He's very thin-skinned.
It seems that Sadiq Khan likes to exaggerate. He was on another radio.
And again, yeah, you're absolutely right. Cheeky bit of turfism for all of the arseholes, right? And again, another movement that's been co-opted by the far right, or has been infiltrated by the far right. Again, and as we've seen from protesters quoting fucking Mein Kampf. Like, come on. You did say the Jam Man was an IRA supporter.
Station last week, talking about the fact that no one can get their hands on tomatoes in this country, and I believe he was blaming Brexit for that. It does seem as though he's getting perhaps a little more extreme in his rhetoric. Do you think he's starting to get a bit worried about the next election?
I think he's suddenly, I think people around him are telling him that this Brexit, beg your pardon, this ULEZ could be the sort of Margaret Thatcher's poll tax. There's a total denial from him that people are as against it as they are. And I assure you, Emily, live in the outskirts of London, and people are desperate because they don't know how they're going to manage. People are angry, are furious because they've bothered to fill in the forms to say, no, don't do it. And he's just not listening to anybody.
I know it's going to cost people hundreds of pounds a month just to essentially get into their car and drive anywhere for.
Oh no, they might have to use a bus or the tube. Like, literally, London is the area of the country with the best public transport. It's not even close. Yeah, tough shit. Hop on a bus, get on the tube, get on your bike. Simple. How dare he blame Brexit for something that Brexit did? Well, yeah, exactly. They can't even... it's interesting. There's no contrary narrative. They just go, I can't believe he'd blame Brexit for the lack of tomatoes. I'm like, yeah, it's because it's to blame. That's why he did that. Like...
Many people. Thank you very much, Susan, for joining us to discuss that. Susan Hall, who is the leader of the City Hall Conservatives at the London Assembly. Thank you very much for your time. Now, we reached out to Sadiq for a comment, but he wasn't available. However, a spokesperson for the Mayor of London said the Mayor stands by his decision to call out the vile messages on display outside the event in Ealing. Those who came to protest included people displaying Nazi symbols and spreading vaccine conspiracy theories. Unfortunately, there is a small group who appear to have latched on to ULEZ expansion to try to play on people's concerns and push their own agenda. The Mayor urges Londoners to look at the facts about ULEZ, to read the evidence about the damage air pollution is doing to people's health, and to be cautious about those who are clearly scaremongering and spreading misinformation. Whether in
Yeah, he's 100% correct. Like, I'm not like a massive Sadiq Khan stan. I have my issues with some of the things that he said, especially around the Jam Man, for example, right? But, he does a pretty good job as London Mayor, and the free school meal stuff is good. And that statement is 100% correct, measured, and not ridiculous, nonsensical stuff that what Emily Carver and this other Burke was saying on there. Like, they're taking an incredibly reasonable and a statement with plenty of conditions on the back of it, saying it's not everybody, people have genuine concerns, I understand those, that's what the consultation's for, but there's a small minority of people hijacking what's happening, and they're just ignoring all of the qualification that he's given here. Conservative newspapers know their readership and understand that putting Khan's name in the headline guarantees angry clicks. Yeah, it's very true. I can't imagine what it's like being Sadiq Khan and getting all of the hate mail and death threats. I upset and frustrated when people just comment like very banal transphobic shit in my comments. I can't imagine what it's like to be Sadiq Khan.
London or in any other part of the country, dangerous conspiracy theories and abhorrent far-right activity should always be condemned in the strongest possible terms. Well, there you go. Let me know what you think about Sadiq Khan's comments. I think he was essentially calling people who are against ULEZ all of these nasty names, and I personally don't think that's on.
No, he wasn't. He literally did. You showed the clip. You literally just played the clip where he said it's not everybody and it's a small minority. You read the statement where he said it's a small minority. What the fuck are you talking about? Do you think that we're all stupid? That we just don't have ears and eyes? And I think that's probably a good place to end that segment, in that they will literally say things and then counteract them in the same video and think that you're too stupid to notice. And apparently people are. Apparently people just are too stupid to notice when they're being taken for a ride, when they're being lied to by contradicting statements in their own videos that they're watching. They just believe whatever they fucking want. Again. But in conclusion, 50 minutes it is great. Cars shit. Fuck motorists, right? Don't care anymore. Don't care. I'm beyond caring about the positive utility. I just want motorists to be upset. And if you've enjoyed this content, please do consider liking and subscribing, and click the bell. It'll notify you when I go live, when I release new content. And if you want to support the channel, it's 99p to a member on YouTube for future YouTube viewers.